Bevanfield. I guess if any company was ever perfect to tell the tiny tale of Tom Thumb, it's Bevanfield! The original Tom Thumb tale is just kind of a series of stupid events. The earliest telling of Tom Thumb was by Richard Johnson in 1621, however the Tom Thumb story was apparently around earlier than that, as he was referred to in a listing of other creatures and monsters in the 1584 book, The Discovery of Witchcraft by Reginald Scott. So whoever definitively created Tom Thumb got away with it without having to be credited. Oh, yeah, there's also a grave for Mr. T. Thumb located in Tattershall, England, saying he died in 1620 and lived to be 101. So take that with a million grains of salt, as it's likely what passed for a super elaborate joke back in those stupid days. I suppose it's pretty good. Tom Thumb's life was apparently a cruel joke in the first place, as in the oldest known version of the story, his father, Thomas, was so desperate for a son he said he'd take one even no bigger than his thumb. Pro tip, if you're ever in a fairy tale, do not make a figure of speech. You're gonna be cursed by it. He and his wife are so desperate to conceive, they go to the best fertility specialist in all the land, Merlin.
Oh yes! Merlin!
Merlin, magician to the court of King Arthur.
Shut up, Merlin! So yeah, we're getting super real here with Tom Thumb being a part of the whole King Arthur and Merlin lore. And I guess you can thank that stupid old wizard for the curse that was the quarter-pint Tom Thumb.
You're welcome. For whatever reason,
You're welcome. Now believe in Tom Thumb, or I'll kill you. The Queen of the Fairies attends his birth, which was lucky for the little brat Thumb, as he would routinely get injured and have to go to the hospital in the land of the fairies. Now, to make Tom endearing to the audience, he's a little jerk who cheats at games and plays tricks on other people. One of Mr. Thumb's classics was apparently using magic to hang pots and glasses on a sunbeam and then laughing it up when other kids tried to imitate this and broke everything. A lot of the story, though, is Tom Thumb getting eaten in stupid ways. He accidentally gets eaten by a cow while it's being milked, so the cow has to take a laxative to shit him out. He apparently accidentally gets boiled into a pudding and just misses getting eaten there, but then a raven flies off with him and drops him off at a giant's castle who pops him like a pill. He doesn't digest so well though, so the giant chucks Tom up into the sea where, guess what? A fish eats him! Maybe he never quite got that pudding sent all the way out, and he's just too delicious to resist. The fish ends up getting caught for King Arthur, and Tom ends up joining the Arthur gang when he wows the very real king with his vory tales. Tom Thumb then ended on a promise of to be continued. But unfortunately for Mr. Thumb, he was the first person ever to be cancelled. At least, no one can find any evidence that Richard Johnson ever created a sequel. Other people continued the story a bit in their tellings of Tom Thumb, like in Dinah Murdoch's version, where he hides in a slack-jawed miller's mouth at one point, and then gets eaten by another fish. For someone who gets eaten so much, you'd think a mouth would be the last place he'd want to hide. After all his near brushes with digestion, it's only the bite of a spider that takes the little man out and led to his very real grave. And then the extra real telling of his tale by Bevanfield. So, yeah, get ready for the second helping of Yippee Beans off this stupid disc, finally. I've complained before about how lazy these Tell Me a Story title cards are, but this one is extra lazy as they use the exact same background as they did for Goldilocks and the Three Bears. We move over to the left this time from this background though, instead of the right, so I guess the Thumbs just live next door to the Three Bears. The Bevanfield Cinematic Universe or something.
Deep in a forest, there lived a woodcutter and his wife.
The woodcutter had an extremely silly walk cycle, but please don't mention it. He's got enough problems, like impotency.
After supper, his wife would come to him and say, "Wouldn't it be nice if we had a child?" The woodcutter would grunt, because he was tired from cutting wood. And in the morning after breakfast, his wife would come to him and say, "I wouldn't mind if we only had one child."
So instead of the woodcutter being desperate for a child, it's just the wife begging a man who's lost the will to live for a kid.
His wife would come to him after lunch and say, "It's so quiet when I'm all alone here during the day. I would like to have a child to keep me company." The woodcutter would snort,
"That stupid walk I do takes everything out of me. I don't have the energy to bang you, you damn wench."
Finally, she would take a shawl and go out into the forest, where the woodcutter was working. What fun it would be to have a child.
A child is not gonna fix this broken marriage.
Who could help you with your chopping. Now you mention it, that's not a bad idea.
If I can get slave labor out of it, let's create an abomination good enough for the Book of Monsters.
But a newborn child will be too small to help me to chop wood.
Yeah, if they aren't going to be useful for labor immediately, what's even the point in a child?
I don't mind. I don't mind if the child is no bigger than my thumb.
And that's when old Merlin comes in with his hilarious pranks.
As big as your thumb. Ha ha ha. That's good.
You have to find joy somewhere in Boredomville.
Stop laughing. It's not funny.
And he would go on with his chopping. But sometime later, the woodcutter and his wife did have a child.
We're just gonna, oh, by the way, Tom Thumb's birth in the story about Tom Thumb. That Bevanfield sure knows how to spin a yarn.
He was extremely small. He was actually no bigger than a human thumb.
As we show him next to a thumb that he is, in fact, a great deal larger than. Bevanfield has decided to chop out any of the Merlin or fairies in the story because they don't want to overstimulate you with too much excitement. Maybe I can eat him for extra chopping energy. I hate my life.
And so the couple called him Tom Thumb.
We don't want anyone to know he's related, so he gets a different last name.
His mother started by feeding him on porridge, but he still didn't grow any bigger.
As we show him clearly larger than he was in the last shot. We're so good at this.
Then she gave him steaks, pork chops, runner beans, treacle tarts, and stewed apples.
You know, she's only fattening you up so she can eat you.
Children's stew, nothing better.
I'm perplexed, I am. Stupid cursed child. All I wanted was free labor. What you gonna do, right, Mommy?
Children's stew.
Tom Thumb stays at home all day and keeps you company, but he's too small to help me in the forest.
Wood Fudder sure does have his priorities.
He's very clever. I'm sure there's something he could do.
Maybe he could cheat and pull pranks on people. Does that help me chop wood, though, wife? I've made a huge mistake.
He could drive the horse and cart.
That seems irresponsible at this age, even if he wasn't fun-sized.
Grunted the woodcutter. The horse would step on him and not even notice.
Oh, you stupid dear. The horse will obviously eat him, not step on him. Right. I surely am the biggest moron in Thumbsville.
I can do it, cried Tom. Just lift me up to the horse's ear. I can then whisper directions to him.
Driving a horse is just like taking a taxi, right?
The woodcutter's wife was worried.
She'd forgotten how dumb their son was when she'd suggested this.
"Hello, horse," whispered Tom Thumb. "Hello," said the horse. "Who are you?" "I'm Tom Thumb."
Bevanfield has absolutely chopped out all of the magic from the story and replaced it with dry small talk.
"I can't see you," he said. "That's because I'm in your hairy ear," said Tom. "Very well."
Today, Stupid Horse learns the concept of needing to look at something in order to see it. Suddenly, Thumb has shrunk a bit from what we've seen in this movie thus far, and also lost his legs, apparently.
Soon they reached the part of the wood where the woodcutter was felling trees.
So apparently Operation Horse Ear took so long that the father left on his own. Seems like a real help. Well, it's almost like I could have gotten that horse to haul wood myself before the little man showed up, but me stupid!
"Now you can see what a clever son you have." Snorted the woodcutter.
And the perfect marriage continues.
The next day, Tom worked with his father in the wood, and Tom whispered to the horse, "Come on." And the horse said, "Very well."
Holy fucking shit! Could you have made this any duller, Bevanfield? Seriously, what the hell's the matter with you? Bevanfield, we hate your children and will make sure they are trapped in an endless nightmare from which they will never awaken. We are Dahlia Gillespie approved.
Alyssa has been trapped in an endless nightmare from which she never awakens, suffering a fate worse than death.
Little Tom had a large appetite.
Yeah, I guess he did if he's eating cookies that are larger than him.
As Tom was guiding the horse through the wood, he passed two men. "How's that horse? Finding his way through the wood without anyone telling him where to go." And they looked at each other and said, "Dunno."
Ah, yeah. Here's the excitement. Two dipshits amazed by a horse walking on its own.
And when Tom whispered, "Go faster," the horse mumbled, "Okie dokie." And when Tom whispered, "Go slower," the horse muttered, "Right you are."
And when Tom said, "Please end my suffering," the horse muttered, "I won't let you off that easily." Two men following a short way behind became more and more confused. Mostly because they'd found a way to walk even sillier than the wood fudder.
"What do you reckon?" said one of the men. "About what?" said the other. "About the horse." "Duh."
I hate you, Bevanfield. I hate you so much!
Flames! On the side of my face.
So, they continued to repeat as much animation as possible because our budget on this was to pay. So they followed the horse and cart until they reached the spot where the woodcutter was working. There they hid behind a tree and watched. Tom Thumb, the story of two bored losers who had nothing going on in their lives. The woodcutter lifted Tom from the horse's ear and said, "Well done, young Tom. We can go home for our supper now." Supper? Duh! How do you suppose they eat on their own? Asked the stupid twit who contributed nothing interesting to this snooze fest of a film. Anyway, now that you got here, Tom, work is done, I guess. That gives me an idea. It does, said the other. Yes. We could put a little fella like that on show. Instead of doing Tom Thumb getting eaten all the time, let's just do Pinocchio with him. Now, to be fair to Bevanfield, though, this is a bit directly from some later versions of the Tom Thumb tale, which was still stupid, but I'm sure Bevanfield's take added at least 90% more boredom to it. We'd make a fortune. We would? Of course we would. We'd be rich. We would? We'd make a fortune. We would? Of course we would. We'd be rich. We would? We'd make a fortune. Duh. Oh, yeah. Of course, they were wrong. But we'll have to give that woodcutter some money. How much you got?
£10.
That's the going rate for children these days, right?
That's my son, said the woodcutter. Yeah, well, we'd like to buy him, see? The woodcutter was angry at this suggestion.
£10 isn't nearly enough. I'd need at least 15 before I'd even consider it.
£10, said the first man. Can't say fairer than that.
Could you shake that bag one more time? Well, I'm hungry and bored of this conversation now. Deal!
So the woodcutter took the bag of coins and watched as his little son went off with the two men. When the woodcutter told his wife what he had done, she was furious.
I thought you'd be happy I sold our son.
She threw the supper on the floor and went to bed in tears.
I threw it on the ground. I'm an adult.
The two men walked and walked until it began to grow dark.
Of course, we couldn't actually make a night backdrop because we are the laziest animation studio on Earth. How many times have we passed by those same mushrooms?
We're going to rest here for the night.
We'll just stop in the middle of this dirt road cause we're morons. Now, here comes Tom Thumb's ingenious plan. Run away.
Tom quickly disappeared down a rabbit hole and was gone. Woo!
Woo!
He ran through the woods and he ran through the fields.
And he ran so far away, but he couldn't get away from Bevanfield backgrounds. He couldn't get away. Okay, so Tom Thumb went down the rabbit hole just to run on the same path again. Great stuff.
He had to stop in order to rest. As soon as he had dozed off, two knobbly hands suddenly grabbed him. It was a well-known robber, thief, and burglar.
He was a robber, thief, and a burglar? How'd he manage all those professions at once? Gotta love how Bevanfield constantly pulls the rug out from under you when you think something different is about to happen. Tom Thumb escaped the one dumb situation only to end up pretty much back where he started with another bozo trying to use the tiny man for tiny profit.
You and I are going to be partners.
Again, Tom ending up with some thieves was directly from some later versions of the story. However, instead of Tom just being captured immediately after his other escape, he overheard thieves planning to rob people and decided to be proactive and join them with the express purpose of thwarting their plans.
He stuffed Tom into his pocket and went on his way. But Tom didn't mind. He knew that all the time he was getting nearer and nearer to his parents' cottage.
Well, not very quickly at that stupid rate. I'm sneaking for some reason, even though no one else is around. A week later, they finally made it past all the mushroom forest and fence backgrounds into an actual town.
They're little enough to climb through the bars. And what do I do when I'm inside? The thief burst into uncontrolled laughter.
Sneak the whole way into town, then bust a gut laughing once you've actually hit your target because you've chosen an incompetent partner in crime.
Well, what you think you do? I don't know, said Tom.
Sadly enough, the first two bozos had a more solid plan to profit off of Tom Thumb than Mr. I'll grab an undersized child and explain crime to him right before it's thieving time.
You creep into the parson's living room, grab all his silver, and hand it down to me. How'll I get the silver up to the window?
Look, I didn't think any of this through. I'm as bad at plans as I am diversifying my portfolio.
Look, shouted the thief. Then he lowered his voice again so that he would not wake the household.
Well, I do believe it's a little late for that.
Just get on with it. It'll be getting late soon.
If only they'd been a way to get here faster, but I only know the one walk cycle cause Bevanfield is lazy.
What would you like me to hand down first? You'll wake up the household. The thief burst into uncontrolled laughter. It was very dark inside. He crashed into a pail.
Crashed or purposely kicked it, Bit of a disconnect there. So, at this point, Tom really doesn't have any reason to continue trying to rob these people, so there's really nothing at stake here. Then, get this, the cook wakes up and scares old Mr. Lord Boss Crime off forever, apparently.
Thief heard the cook screaming and ran off and wasn't seen again in the village for many years.
I'm gonna throw out a wild guess here and say that this robber, thief, and burglar was batting a giant goose egg when it came to any of his professions. Anyway, I'm a floating torso with a teddy bear, I am.
What hath been transpiring? I heard mice. No. Let us not immediately suppose that all the sounds of the night may be attributed to the activities of one of God's less noble creatures. But I heard them, Reverend. No. My good woman, I beg you to put down that...
conversation anyway.
After the amazing cinematic masterpiece that was the back and forth about whether mice really were in the kitchen, they decide to leave the door open so mice will just leave if they are in the kitchen. Because, you know, that's how that works. And it's extra brilliant considering the world's dumbest thief might have even been able to make off with something through an open door.
It was still dark outside.
I've never seen a cartoon need to resort to so many day-for-night shots. Great job, Bevanfield. Mr. Thumbler Bumbler has a thrilling conversation with a cow that we can barely see about sleeping in the barn tonight. But you'll just have to watch the movie for yourself to see how truly mind-blowing that scene really is. He gets a ride with the cow the next day, right back to mushroom hell.
Thank you for your help. Look out for wolves, said the cow.
Well, just as long as I don't run into any gorilla bear abominations. This helpful cow had a much worse fate in older versions of the story where it appeared as Tom slept in the hayloft and guess what? Was accidentally eaten by the cow. Then, after Tom yelling inside the cow's stomach, that scared the cook who promptly had the supposedly talking cow killed because who'd want to make money off of that? But, of course, Bevanfield's take on all this was dry small talk. And, of course, after Tom was almost all the way out of the cow's stomach, he got swallowed by a wolf. Classic Tom Thumb!
After he had gone a fair way, Tom began to feel very tired.
I know the feeling, Bevanfield.
So Tom sat down to rest.
That Bevanfield sure knows how to make a 24-minute movie feel like 2 hours.
Then two big eyes appeared in the shadows of the trees. A huge wolf bounded out of the shadows and gobbled up poor Tom.
Well, finally, Tom Thumb actually got back to his roots in this stupid movie.
Let me out.
Let me what?
Let me out.
I guess Tom couldn't quite finish that thought. It was too complex.
No, I won't.
That's when Tom said he'd bore the wolf to death before he was digested, and the wolf knew this was a serious threat.
So Tom guided the wolf through the forest to the woodcutter's cottage.
My mom and dad are much bigger than me. Eat them!
He immediately jumped up and squeezed through the bars.
Somehow!
There in the kitchen was all the food that Tom had described.
My parents are the most wasteful shitters on earth.
The wolf's eyes bulged and his mouth dribbled, and he began to eat, and he ate, and he ate, and he ate. He continued to eat until he couldn't eat anymore. In fact, he could hardly move. He was so fat.
Instantly! That's quite impressive.
Meanwhile, Tom had been singing and dancing in the wolf's stomach.
Somehow, all the food didn't hit him and push him further down the digestive tract. Hey, I'm so tired. My Arbor wife has been forcing me to try and make a Tom replacement. Can you be our new son, Mr. Wolf?
Time for me to leave. Unfortunately, the wolf had become so fat he couldn't fit between the bars of the window.
Because it made sense for him to be able to fit through them in the first place.
He fell to the floor, and Tom crawled out of his mouth unhurt.
Then a spider came up and gave Tom a fatal bite. It was all for naught.
She forgave the woodcutter for selling her tiny son.
I forgive you even though you did nothing to try and fix the situation. It just happened to work out.
Aren't we the luckiest people in the world? Grunted the woodcutter.
That wolf hit it with you!
I threw it on the ground.
Yeah, it sure is amazing how Bevanfield is able to suck the joy out of just about anything, isn't it? Tom Thumb is a pretty silly tale, but you know, some things happen in it sometimes. Not just him ending up in a series of boring conversations that go back and forth until one of the parties passes away from boredom. So, you've truly done it, Bevanfield. If there's a worse telling of Tom Thumb out there, I don't want to know about it!
The wolf waddled off, feeling rather sick and suffering from a terrible headache.
Stop laughing. It's not funny.